Hello my fellow gamers and welcome once again to Zoopedia. Today we are going to see how to start a zoo and be profitable in Planet Zoo when playing in franchise mode, off or online. The main obstacle in being profitable in Planet Zoo isn't so much the lack of anything, but rather an abundance of enthusiasm on the part of the player. When you start a new zoo in the franchise mode, you're given a set amount of cash. This amount could be changed with the patches, but it's always going to be just high enough for you to start a functioning zoo. However, this amount is never going to be enough to fully turn your dreams into reality. This is why you need to start slow and carefully. I'm going to show you the limits of what you can create and set up at the start of a new zoo, as well how to start and become profitable quickly so that you can turn those zoo dreams into reality. There are 5 elements that you need before welcoming the first visitors to your zoo. You need visitor and staff pets, you need the habitats and exhibits for visitors to view, you need facilities for staff to work from and to which all those pets will connect to. You need the animals for your habitats and exhibits, and you need other visitor entertainment. Of these, the staff facilities are the most expensive, so you need to know how many of which you're going to add and just start a new zoo with enough of them. You should also be mindful not to go all out on pets and pre-make your entire zoo's pets, because there is no need for that as your limited funds won't allow you to make a lot of exhibits or habitats. An additional thing to keep in mind is that the visitors dislike having to go past or view the zoo's facilities. So keeping staff and other facilities like utilities away from the visitor size is something that you have to plan for from the start. This is why my advice is to branch out a T-path intersection at the entrance to your zoo. Direct visitors left and right while keeping your facilities hidden behind a habitat that is the first thing that the visitors see as they enter your zoo. And for them to be able to actually see, you need the glass windows and a drop box for donations in front of it. Next up, you need a gate for your keepers to be able to enter and exit the habitat at the back of it, which is going to connect to your facilities. Next up, you need to place the staff pets behind your first habitat so that you have room for all the necessary staff facilities. Of course, you need to start with the keeper's hut close to the entrance to the habitat for quick approach and feeding of the animals. After that, you just need to follow the game's guide and place down all the other staff facilities that you need. All staff facilities need power to be operational, but what you need to know is that the entrance to the zoo acts like a small power plant and provides power to the close by staff facilities. Now that your animal trade center is set up and operational, you can enter the market and choose your first animal. You just need a few simple animals that do not require too much maintenance and don't require huge habitats. That is why your first habitat is right there at the start for the interest of the viewers to be picked by simple animals that do not require too much maintenance or staff facilities, and then you can branch out on your left or right side, and as you gain more money you can make more complex habitats and more interesting animals can be placed in them. Good starting animals are also tortoises and tapirs because they are not aggressive, won't get injured, and the vet will spend his time researching instead of healing the animals. And lastly, when buying an animal from the market, make sure to check can you buy them for cash, as conservation points are much harder to come by. Use the cash only filter in the animals market options to buy an animal just for cash instead of the conservation points. When buying a new animal, make sure to take notice of its genetics. If you want an animal just for display, you can buy an animal with 0 reproduction score. But if you want to breed animals, then that is your most desired trait. Each animal has its specific behavior and personality, which governs which fences you need to use for its habitat. Always check the Zoopedia for that information, so you can make a habitat with the proper level and material of the fence, as well as the required height for the fence. Keep in mind that you will gain more options for habitat management as you unlock more options in the workshop by having a mechanic do the research on that subject and a veterinarian doing research in the research center on that particular species. To be able to keep an animal happy and interesting for your visitors, you have to follow the guidelines for that animal habitats and social needs written out in the Zoopedia. Always check for information on how many animals and of which gender can be placed in a single habitat, which biome the animals comes from, as that determines the types of plants that it likes to see in its habitat and the actual size requirement for that habitat. Once you get the animal from the market and have it sent to your trade center, you need somebody to carry it from the trade center to its habitat, and those are the keepers. Besides them, you also need caretakers, vets, and mechanics to employ at the start of your zoo. Once you have your basic staff employed, then it's time to add what the visitors are going to need. They'll need an ATM, they'll later on need some information, which you're going to need to place information centers for, and other elements in the game that may be unlocked later to help you educate your visitors. And besides that, you're going to need a toilet and other small things that the visitors require when visiting your zoo. When you have a very small zoo at the start, 2 to 4 habitats, exhibit or 2, guests do not stay long enough to need to eat or drink. I have a whole video about guest happiness that you can watch, which goes deeper into this subject, and I will leave a link in the description as well as a card in the right corner of the screen for you to find that video. So just make sure to add those buildings once your zoo is big enough that your visitors and guests actually need to eat and drink. Because of the long open hours of your zoo, make sure to add more vendors after placing the first buildings that require vendors as staff, because they'll need to work in 2 shifts. Besides beautifying your zoo with vegetation, you'll also need to add more paths for places where you're going to place benches and tables so that your visitors can rest and eat and drink. And you need these extra large places for visitors' paths, because you need to move away the visitors that are not currently next to a habitat and watching the animals to a secluded place where they're not gonna get into the way of other visitors. If your paths are too small, they're gonna get very crowded very fast, and then your visitors won't flow and travel throughout your zoo and see all the animals, because they're gonna get stuck. If you find that your animal habitat is not big enough for your animals, you can always edit the barriers and expand the habitat, which is just another reason to keep things loose and spread about when you're starting your zoo, to give yourself wiggle room for later edits and additions. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button below and leave a comment about what would you like to see more of on my channel. And think about subscribing if you're not subscribed already. A simple addition to the zoo, which doesn't require too much space, are the exhibits, onto which you can put animals that are going to pique the interest of your visitors while they're traveling between 2 habitats. Because they are so small, make sure to add extra paths around them to have a place where the visitors are going to stand and look at them and not block the passage of other visitors using the paths around them. Once you're happy with how your zoo is working and there are no issues or problems and all the animals are happy that you have currently, and you've done everything you can to make them more happy that you've researched so far, you can go on and make the next habitat. You need to check the Zoopedia and see what is the size of the habitat that new animal is going to require, and also then once you get the animal inside of that habitat, you need to make sure that everything that it needs is inside, like water, food, and the required biome that depends on the animal's origin. Once you finish up the habitat and the animal is happy with its environment, you can keep doing research to get more enrichment items which are going to make the animal even more happy, and the happier the animal is, the better it is for the viewers and more interesting. And that covers the basics of starting a new and profitable zoo. There are a lot more nuances and interesting game mechanics that you can go deeper in and make sure to have an even better zoo, but I will go into these in the next videos. Thank you all for watching, and please stay tuned for more.